Links to join the channel here over at Subscribestar. So the Acolytes actress Amanda, another Star Wars streaming show that you're probably never gonna watch. There's so many out there. There's stuff that you think you've never heard of. Like everyone's heard of the Mando, and then you go, oh no, there's actually 4 other shows out there. Oh yeah, like that guy from that other show that was in that thing who did that thing. Yeah, I think I heard of that. It's like, did you watch it? No, I don't think anyone watched it. Oh, that's kind of weird because isn't Disney at one time, wasn't it kind of known like everywhere? It was a huge brand name recognition. I mean, shouldn't they be, oh, I don't know, printing money with the, she owned the rights to Disney, to Star Wars. Yeah. How you doing with it? Oh, we effed it in the A. Why'd you do that? Why? Can you go ahead and explain to me why you did what you did? What do you say? What do you do here? Oh, we ruined things. But why? You paid $4 billion for it. Yeah. And we're gonna ruin it. That's insane. I know. At some point, you have to realize you're dealing with truly insane people. Like I say, these people are in a cult. So the Acolyte actress claims the world of sci-fi hasn't felt like a safe space, always for pox, walks, furry, otherkin, or whatever. It's like, okay, well, I mean, nothing's stopping you from writing your own fantasy stories. And with sci-fi is kind of international. Sci-fi actually does have a lot of characters from all over the world in sci-fi. Fantasy is a little bit different because it's more based in European mythology, so I'll give you that. But there's nothing that says, okay, I guess she's of African origin, or mixed something. It's like, okay, well, just set a story in Africa if you want to write African mythology. There's no shortage of stories and tribes to draw from like the African mythos if you wanted. There's plenty of people who have done it before you. Henry Rider Haggard. Oh, he's the wrong color. Yeah, but he actually did a really well balanced way to do it. So yeah, okay, European fantasy stories, like Lord of the Rings, that type of stuff. Like, yeah, it had European people in it because that's the setting. It's like it's not supposed to be a safe space for anyone who's not of European origin. You just have to write your own story. There's nothing stopping you. There was nothing stopping you 200 years ago, and there's nothing stopping you right now. There's no better time to put some creative stories out there and get it funded and disseminated. It's like the tools are out there. There's nothing stopping anyone right now. Like if you're in the mainstream and you're like on the good think list and the approved puppet masters, it's like you're gonna get yourself out there, no problem. But the thing is, even if you're in the alt community and you're a wrong thinker and you say what's not supposed to be said, there's alternative ways to disseminate information and get paid for it. It's like on either side of the aisle, you can put your stories out there if you really want to. So at this point, they're basically trolling us. This is what I mean by the humiliation ritual, because they're saying exactly the wrong thing if you're trying to get people to pay to watch your shows. Like these aren't fans. You always stop that and just think, no, these are customers. This is a contractual exchange. We're trying to get people to subscribe to Disney Plus for $15 a month or something. We need that. We need those monthly fees. So when you go out and do an interview and you're needlessly aggressive and you're kind of alienating, I'm speaking my truth and truth to power. And maybe that's your side of it internally, but like none of that is relevant to this contractual exchange of our primary purpose here is to get people to subscribe to Disney Plus. But that's not Disney's primary purpose anymore, as you'll discover. The thing is, they just can't help themselves, and they don't give a rat's ass. They don't care about the money. So the thing is, the cast of the show does the interview, and she sounds like a complete and total idiot. Just the piece of garbage that the world revolves around, sort of thing. But this guy, her co-star, is doing an interview, and he doesn't understand. I don't know what country he's from, but he doesn't understand the whole diversity thing. So he just repeats it, goes, "Oh yeah, diversity is in the show." But we're trying to get he's selling the show. He's trying to get people on board the show. He's got limited English, but he's just talking about the show. She's talking about herself. It's a huge difference. So if you're trying to sell something, you don't go out of your way to antagonize people. Hey guys, can you send me comic books and pocket knives and flashlights and cool stuff and donate to my subscribe? Oh, you're all fat. Yeah, but send me comic books and donate to Subscribestar, fatties. Like, no, we're not gonna send you anything if you called us fat. I'm just saying, hey fatties, send me some comic books. It doesn't work like that. The mailbox is empty if I do that. I know that because I'm not an idiot. You're all slender and beautiful people. So here's the thing with the big corporate Hollywood world. They're always behind the curve, and the pendulum here is already swinging back. It doesn't matter what your feelings about these topics are. It matters how the customer feels. It's a binary. Are you giving them what they want to pay for? Their reasoning doesn't change that point of sale. It doesn't matter what her intent is. It only matters what the customer hears. And she is speaking in this 1984 newspeak that people are just really done with. It's all this woke BLM type of like California speak. Like, who's that guy? I did that video on that Jonah Hill guy the other day, and yeah, it wasn't a perfect video, as people pointed out, as Beans pointed out. But he was using that kind of language. You know, on one hand, it's a little manipulative. On the other hand, it's just soy. Like, people were just going, that's a weird way for a man to speak, but that's just kind of a California Hollywood type of thing. But the thing is, people are like, most people will hear that kind of these kind of woke buzzwords and like, yeah, that was like 3 years ago energy when BLM was kind of just getting started, and then they're like, oh, BLM stole all the money. Oh, okay, well, it's over then. It's like you're still trying to push these buzzwords. It's not going to. Oh, Leslie Hadlin, what an idiot she turned out to be, and so did Alonzo, the other one, the other chick. I mean, women in general. It's you're better off with guys for all things Star Wars, Star Trek, comic books, these kind of movies. You're better off with neckbeards, and that's just the way of the world. They're going to give you something. You look at comic book writers over the years, and it's like, most of them have looked the way they looked. So most of them look like EVS when he was during his fat phase. So she comes out the gate talking about safe spaces. It's not even, and you got to see that picture. Go Google EVS on a horse. That poor animal. The thing is, she's talking about safe spaces, and it's not even that nobody cares. It actively pisses off people to hear people whine like the little bitches they are. At some point, you got to go deep. You got to ask, like, do these people want peace, or do they want civil war, or maybe it's better to compromise and peacefully separate now to avoid a civil war? And the thing is, it's like, no, this one little Star Wars thing isn't doing a whole lot of heavy lifting. It's all like, it's all facets of the same crystal, and there's something, that naked singularity at the start of it. And America is a ship with what seems like nobody is at the helm, but it's actually very bad people holding the till. Because, life is hard for everyone as individuals. People are really tired of other people whining about nothing. It's like you have this chick who's an actor and a model. Like, oh, your life is so hard. Tell it to the roofer in Arizona during summer. Yeah, oh, no, you don't understand. I need a safe space. Like, yeah, that Arizona roofer needs a safe space when it's 120 degrees. Having done a little roofing myself, let me tell you. Because, life is rough all over. And a lot of these idiots are so deep in an echo chamber that they really think that people are still into this cancer. Nobody is. We saw the consequences of the BLM Antifa riots. People are kind of finally seeing, like, oh, you guys were the bad people all the time. People just want to hear you talk about the show that you're promoting. That's the idea of, you're promoting the show, not yourself. Do you understand that? And she really does not understand it. I mean, Hollywood people are on a different level in terms of narcissism. If you didn't think Hollywood is a safe space for your tribe, it's like nobody gives a darn anymore. Maybe years ago people would have cared, or they would have pretended to. Those days are long gone. They just want a little bit of escapism through a streaming show, and like you're not going to see that on Disney Star Wars. You're not going to see that in Disney at all. I think you're going to see a fundamental shift, a restructuring in Disney. You might see I don't know what the corporate legal form restructuring terms are, where like the shareholders are suing for breach of fiduciary duty to get control of the company and turn it in a different direction. But you're going to see in your lifetime, in the next like 10 years, you're going to see Disney, something massively is going to change, because they just can't continue to go down this path and make like what Snow White is coming out. I think this Disney and the Seven Dwarfs, and some of you look at some of the behind the scene footage for that, and you're like, oh, so this is like, you're building these sets. I'm looking at this and like, this is over $100 million. The sets, I'm looking at the sets. It's like, this is millions just in sets alone. I don't know what the budget for this thing is, but like, you're going to lose $100 million on this movie. And right now, the odds are you're going to lose $100 million, and you're doing it anyway. Yeah. It's woke. Okay. Hey, by all means, please keep losing money. And so the next stupid thing she says is something about the early 77 Star Wars, and she goes, it wasn't diverse and inclusive, which is an amazing Dunning-Kruger effect going on here, because it was a great trilogy just the way it was. And the new Disney is inclusive, and it sucks hairy donkey balls. So follow my logic here. The less diverse and inclusive something is, the better it is. That is her argument. I totally agree with her. Don't get me wrong. Very based, Chad friendly argument, which I've been saying for years, since diversity is obviously cancer. Unity is strength. I mean, I've said this 100 times, and I'm the bad person for saying this. People are tribal. It doesn't make sense to have different tribes of people forced together. You see this in tons of movies. I mentioned these same dozen movies. What was it? The Stephen King movie, The Dark Tower, was just a great example of that. Where they go to some small town set in the Old West. It's supposed to be like a Clint Eastwood, the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of thing. And those movies, gosh, what fantastic films those are. And you go to this town, it's all like, oh, so it has a black husband and a Chinese wife, and like, it's like that's the whole town. You're like, this isn't an Old West setting. What is this? And so you're all this diverse group of people, but you all just met in the first generation because after 100 years, you'd all look the same. Yeah, but then like that wouldn't be diverse. See, like diversity destroys diversity. Yeah, basically, it's like this is just Hollywood globalism. It's kind of the thing they're pushing. The thing is, people are done. Like, especially everything that's happened over the past few years. Like, you can't divorce like national politics with Hollywood. That's why, I mean, people are going to Hollywood for an escapism, and they've seen all the riots and violence over the past 3 years, and they don't want to go on screen and see this fake idealized version of people getting together. It's like, oh no, people hate each other. Let's just be aware of that and go back to some sort of tribalism. Nobody wants to see diversity on screen. And the thing is, the people who say this suddenly, like, it's instant ad hominem and attacking the people who are saying the very obvious things. It's like, oh, so you want a chilling effect on free speech. You don't want people to say the things that are so very obviously true. It's like, yeah, that's the point of censorship and deplatforming. People want organic stories that make sense. People in tribes closely resemble each other. That's how genetics work. They share the same gene group envelope of people who are in the same, their mountains and rivers are what separates humans throughout history, and they are, other tribes. It's like, it's funny, you watch, they radio tag coyotes and wolves and stuff, and then they color code the maps of the geography, and they show these very distinct boundaries for, wolf packs, and they're all, like, each one's got, so many square miles to operate in. And the red and the blue come right up to each other, and they don't overlap because they mark it with their urine. It's like that's their scent territory. It's like that's the natural way of the world. What a great channel got kicked off YouTube. All the great channels got kicked off YouTube. Anyway, people want organic stories. People in tribes look similar. That's like people subconsciously, consciously, they look and they go, yeah, this makes sense when I see a group of people who, like, you see a group of Arabs somewhere running around, herders or ranchers or whatnot. They're all going to share physical features. They all look like they're part of a tribe because they're all part of a tribe who've been together. Some branch of somebody's brothers. They went off and formed a family. They were herding goats in one certain area. It's like, well, yeah, they're bringing in new women from outside the tribe, but they're all going to evolve to look very, very similar. The same environmental stressors and whatnot. They're all going to, like, the height's going to, the facial features, is like everything, the skin tone, the hair, everything is going to be roughly similar. It's like their gene group envelopes, I don't know, was it called, like hagiographies or something? They're all going to, like, they look like they belong together, and that's organic. Like, we know people in some little Irish town, they're all, you got like overrepresentative of red and blonde people, and it's like they're all going to look a certain way. That's what we know is organic. And then you go to Hollywood and you see this stuff. It's like, so you have people from like 10,000 miles from the other side of the planet. They're all put together. That rubs us the wrong way subconsciously. Why are you doing that in the story? Oh, because it's propaganda. It's woke. It's diverse. It's inclusive. But that's not organic storytelling. You don't want to tell it. You're not telling organic stories. What you're doing is propaganda. I mean, it's literally the definition of propaganda. And they look at you and they go, Nazi says what? But that's really their argument because they don't have an argument to it. Anyway, the Star Wars, this guy gave the interview and he was trying to do his best to sell the show. And like, he didn't know what this girl was talking about. He's talking about diverse and inclusive. Like, it just didn't make any sense to him because, like, they're just on different pages. So the Star Wars streaming program was always going to be a hard sell because people are sick of woke Star Wars, and they're getting sick of Disney in general, which is surprising because even the theme parks have dipped down a little bit. And they go, oh, it's the heat in Florida. It's like, yeah, Florida's always been hot and humid. It's miserable. But I think something else is going on with Disney. And like I said in the other video, they're calling it the Elon Musk effect because now suddenly Twitter's a little bit freer and people are talking about, hey, Anheuser-Busch and Target stores and, you know, the Ford Raptor with the rainbow flag and Disney is probably the more important one because they're actually going after kids. It's like people are free to talk about it. It's not just on Gab and Telegram. It's on a mainstream platform. So, like, the boycotts are having more power now because of Twitter, which is probably why who's that guy Zuckerberg came out with. He rushed the Threads development to try to get people over there. It's like, dude, nobody's going on Threads. Threads sucks. Somebody said, I think Ryan Cannell said, Twitter's for assholes and Threads is for pussies. So she says she's glad to see that there's progress in Star Wars by destroying it by getting rid of the core to the story and turning it into nothing more than a BuzzFeed movie type of thing. Diversity isn't progress; it's failure. Star Wars has 5 streaming shows that nobody is watching because they don't look like Star Wars. People would watch them if they resembled the '77 trilogy. Yes, it's mostly fair people, blonde and light-eyed people, but that's what it's supposed to be because that was the original story. That are you curative or transformative? Do you want to tell the organic story? If you do, that would be Lucas's story. And I was thinking about this on the dog walk last night. And if Lucas still had Star Wars now, Lucas is a woke left-wing globalist guy. He is woke. He's just not as woke as Disney. Like even when he did his prequels, it was it wasn't that woke. But he wouldn't be as woke as Disney. Like, Disney is just out of their freaking mind. The thing with Lucas is, like, he would introduce more woke elements a little bit, but he would also focus on trying to tell a good story. The thing is, in their world, that simple truth doesn't matter about, like, organic storytelling. It doesn't matter what is or isn't PC. The audience is not paying for woke diversity. That's the bottom line. It's not istophobic to say the truth. I'm speaking my truth to power. Star Wars should have been printing money. I don't think they're streaming cancer. I don't think any of their streaming shows is a net positive. Maybe at Mandalorian, they had one chance with the Mando, but they betrayed Gina Carano because she had some Twitter post. It was a very reasonable thing to say. People were going after conservatives for their opinions, and they were trying to isolate their neighbors, and it was us versus them. And it's like what she said was entirely reasonable. It's like, oh, she's fired. Oh, but you don't fire like all these other people, Padre, the other guy, the Star Wars guy, the Pascal or something, for saying very similar things, or other Disney employees saying MAGA kids go in the wood chipper, the Covington Catholic kids, like all those people, all the horrific, abhorrent things they say. They didn't get fired, but Gina Carano got fired for saying essentially, oh, you should treat your neighbors better. Like, don't stop letting these corporate whores try to divide us. Oh, but she mentioned it like she compared it to World War II. She's saying, yeah, don't treat people like that. Oh, well, she's fired. Okay, well, how did the Mando do? Oh, viewership kind of dropped off a cliff. So how did Andor Star Wars do? How is Acolyte gonna do? How did the Book of Boba Fett do? And there's a couple others out there. It's like, how did all those shows do? It's like, oh, nobody's watching them for some weird reason. Yeah, because when people think of Disney, they think of just a bunch of assholes, and they're right. So this idiot interview, she deliberately starts off as us versus them antagonistic. It's unnecessary, and nobody gives a darn about the history of Hollywood. Yes, it's run by demons. It wasn't safe for POCs. It wasn't safe for the people of the light anyway. It's just full of parasites and predators. I mean, the same people who cheered Weinstein for 30 years are the ones who were lecturing us on morals. Starting out with that statement comes across as needlessly hostile in a current environment where people are really getting sick of this type of stuff and each other. And she says the worst thing that she could possibly say. Like, she's saying something that from 2015 to 2021 kind of energy. And that energy has shifted, and she doesn't seem to be aware of how sick people are of this kind of stuff. And if you get on Twitter, like, people are getting way more red-pilled on Twitter. I mean, the posts that are staying up on Twitter now are like, am I on Gab? No, it's Twitter. I don't know if they stay up for long, but they do stay up for a while, and they get like 50,000 likes. I mean, posts I can't even show you on YouTube. That's how base they are. It's like, it does, like, you are getting into Gap territory with Twitter now. It's a trip. So every time she says inclusion and safety, I feel nauseated. Any normal person who isn't a soy boy cuck simp would read this interview and cancel their Disney Plus. This should just be the final straw for people. The way to do the interview is to ignore all the woke bullshit talk. Talk about how awesome the show is, about your co-stars, the plot, the sets, the people who are working on it behind the scenes, and everyone loves Star Wars and they're big fans and whatever. You're trying to sell the show, and how privileged and lucky you are to be given this chance, and how you're going to do your best to make this the best Star Wars it can be. Instead, you absolutely F the show by talking about safety, diversity, and inclusion. All that tells us is that you're going to be a Mary Sue who's hired to push Disney's woke agenda, and people should not watch the show. You're supposed to sell the heck out of the show, not air your personal grievance points about all these stupid Marxist talking points. People are sick unto death over that type of stupidity. She doesn't even sound like she knows what she's talking about. She's just repeating things she heard from, the Mary Sue kind of talking points, but she never stopped to think about. She's babbling about the patriarchy and how Star Wars has focused on the men's story, the hero's journey, and now it's all, it's now we're focusing on the matriarchy. But that doesn't that doesn't make sense. People want to see the man's journey because men are deeper and more nuanced. They can go on high risk journeys because they are biologically more expendable. That's just hardwired human biology, and people recognize that in storytelling. Women carry one kid for 9 months, and then they breastfeed, and then they carry more kids, and they train them to raise them, but they're tied down to those kids. And it's like that's the biological role in nature, where the men of the tribe have to protect the tribe. It's like everyone has their role to make the tribe successful. That's just the way of the world. And if one guy dies on a hunt, it doesn't hurt the future generations because one man can impregnate several women a night, but only one woman can get pregnant. That's why there's millions of years of biology that is going against these modern storytelling, where they're telling these stories against the grain. You're probably going to have stories that are just not connecting with an audience. Aliens or something like The Terminator was an exception because you had a reluctant hero where she fell into a position. And then the thing is, at the end, Terminator 2, she gets pregnant. And it's like she's carrying on her natural duties to bring forth the guy to be the next hero. It's like if they remake that now, it's like she probably wouldn't get pregnant because having sex with a man is problematic or something. Nobody wants to see female characters as they are established now because their motivations are totally wrong. Like someone on the right could write female characters or POC characters, but someone on the left can't because they don't have they can't see both sides of the story, where someone on the right can see around corners and the left is so locked into this myopic tunnel vision thing. So having a female character in movies like this now is like they're essentially career women, and that's just not interesting. Women are designed in stories to be rescued and to be the objects of desire, the sex objects. And I know if you like 2015 energy, the Anita Sarkeesians of the world would say that as if it's a negative, and I look at it now and go, no, that you understand that's a positive. We have a different opinion. Oh well, you're just like istophobic or misogynist or finger a woman or like whatever. Yeah. We have like most of us very much so. We know women, we like women, but we also know how storytelling works. Like putting women in these high risk situations. Nobody wants to see women get hurt. That's just millions of years of biological evolution is to protect young fertile women so they can bring forth the next generation. You can't make stories where women are at risk of getting laser blasted because the audience doesn't connect with that. They want to see men can be at risk because they're expendable. That's 10 million years of evolution. So there are rules to good storytelling, and before you jump down in my panties about sexism or Mr. Gynae, I'm telling you what sells. They're making these new vagina power stories that they just don't sell. Clearly they're doing something wrong and stupid, and they're doing this massive social engineering, and it's also massively failing. And the thing is, yes, everyone is welcome into fandoms as long as you are curative and not transformative. And yes, obviously there are black people in Star Wars. Lando Calrissian was famously introduced in, and let's get to some of these comments, famously introduced in Empire, and people loved him because he was a kick-ass character. He wasn't a Mary Sue. I mean, there's one point where he betrays them, and then he redeems himself in the second movie, and the Wookiees got him in a chokehold, and Leia has to save him. He wasn't a purse puppy. He was a nuanced character who was trying to find his way between what is it? What's that Greek? The rocks and the sirens or something. He was trying to navigate his way. He wanted to save the people, and he had to temporarily sacrifice Han, but then he had a plan to try to rescue him, and he redeemed himself. Like, that's a nuanced little bit of story. It's not rocket science. It's not Shakespeare. Don't get me wrong. But for modern storytelling, it's like you never see that. You never see a Lando guy, a black guy, being put in that position of being a complex, multifaceted character. So because now if you're not blonde, then your character is going to be flat, two dimensional. You're going to be perfect at everything. You're going to be it's. I mean, what it does is it destroys storytelling, and then people just slowly stop going to the theaters, and they slowly stop paying for streaming services, and eventually you're going to see a radical transformation in Hollywood. I think in the next 10 years, because they're making stories that are fundamentally not connecting with people, and they're hoping that they put them out there long enough that it will connect with people. And I don't think so, because I think there's just too much biology that people will reject stories that are just propaganda, because you're not. I mean, this isn't Russia or Cuba or China. You're not forced to watch those things. Like, you have alternatives like this. I mean, you can listen to Odyssey, BitChute, Gab TV, and Subscribestar, and all these other platforms for live streams. Like, people watch a lot of live streams now on Rumble, Odyssey, and YouTube. It's like, well, every minute you're watching a live stream is a minute you're not watching the mainstream stuff, which they hate, but which is also good for us. And if the mainstream can't, like, Mission Impossible, Oppenheimer, and Barbie are three movies that are coming out on the horizon, and those are three movies. But there's more movies out there. Don't get me wrong. There's hundreds of movies out there, but those are the three movies that have a chance of connecting with an audience. Like, Mission Impossible is going to be a big hit. Barbie's going to be kind of a surprise hit. And Oppenheimer will do well. It's kind of a more serious audience, but in 3 hours long. But I think it'll connect with people. So those three movies, it's like, yeah, there's tons of other movies. Yeah, nobody's talking about them because they just don't give a shit about them. It's three movies that are coming out, and like I say, if I'm going to see one movie, it's probably going to be. And I'm like, I realize I haven't seen a movie in 3 years because of the Wu flu, and the people I usually see movies with are, I guess, kind of paranoid about it. If I had to see one thing, it would be Mission Impossible, because it feels like that's going to be the one movie that comes out like every 2 years. You're going to get a movie worth going to the theaters for. But you can't sustain an industry on a Tom Cruise movies where that's kind of what it was, because the last movie that hit big was a Tom Cruise Maverick movie, and the next movie is going to be Tom Cruise Mission Impossible, and he's still got probably 5 years of making movies left, so the next movie is going to be a movie after that, at least until he gets injured doing stunts. It's going to be another Tom Cruise movie. It's like, Tom Cruise can't carry Hollywood. He can't keep the theaters in business. You have to, at some point, Hollywood has to turn around and start making movies that just don't suck sweaty, hairy donkey balls like they do. Anyway, how long is this video going on for? Probably too long. Like, comment, subscribe. This was supposed to be like a 10-minute video, but I like to hear myself talk. Sorry. You're not fat. You're all thin, beautiful, attractive, with large penises and beautiful, perky, uplifted breasts. So please donate to the Subscribestar or send me comic books through the mail. Thanks to everyone who has, especially Vegan, for the pocket knives, comics. And I'll see you guys all next episode.